Right.
Here we are again.
I'm excited. I'm actually really excited about this because I think the topic we're going to open up today has. I think it was something that maybe needs to be spoken about,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that from the last clip that was probably shared from our
Mm-hmm.
previous show shows that there's maybe an undercurrent here that we've said something that resonates not only with players, with parents,
Mm-hmm.
potential other coaches are frustrated or volunteers from across the country
Mm-hmm.
that resonate with that. So I suppose we just get stuck in.
Yeah, I mean,
Player pathway.
yeah, player pathway. I came under a bit of criticism for using the word ruin um, from certain people. Um, Now, it's probably the optics of that.
Mm.
Um, it maybe could have been said slightly differently. However, I stand by that. That's what's happened to some players, and you'll have seen that with Instagram photo that I kind of shared with a player who's came forward, said, "I've played Scotland 16s, 18s, 20s. I've had one poor game in the academy, and then I've been cut."
Yeah.
And you're like, well, they've obviously the union have obviously invested time and money into that player. Then where has the decision to cut him after one poor game came from?
Yeah, I think that's a very extreme circumstance. I mean, one bad game doesn't make a player a bad player. You can see, like we've played, and I've been approached by on countless occasions, whether it be face to face or a phone call from a coach just going, "Chris, I think you've just had a dip in form. We're just going to go with someone else this weekend." And again, it's not nearly the same level of. Oh, you're under 20 points, you're just getting cut after one game. It's very extreme, but it's the same process of being told no and the power and how that's like being delivered. Now, I was always given that opportunity of this is where we need you to go and work on. So I always kind of bounce back from those setbacks. But if it's ruined is a very strong word, but in the sense of if there's a player who is essentially very talented, we spoke before, like exceptional talent is still exceptional talent. One bad game should be forgiven.
Well, that's it. You would think so, and the pathway is there to help develop our best talent and set them on their way through that representative process. And when you're getting the feedback that I've had from parents, numerous parents on Instagram, but at least half of them, slightly less maybe, have said that their kid has either decided to stop playing or is thinking about stopping playing, there is something fundamentally wrong with that process. Yeah. And you could come from the perspective that it's elite because it's representative rugby, so you have to be a wee bit more cutthroat. However, there are too many people saying that the process doesn't work. There are too many parents saying their kids are being upset. There are too many young players who are questioning whether they want to continue to play the game or not. And that's not something that can be ignored.
Yeah.
And it's not something that I'll be silenced on in with regards to that. And I think we have to understand that these players are children.
Yeah, first and foremost. At that bottom end when they start the pathway, the 15-year-olds,
and they are children, right up to they're 19, they're kids. Okay, they're older kids, but there's maybe get into young adults, but there has to be a structure in place where they are supported and not given one page of, need to watch what I'm saying here, one page of feedback which looks not necessarily specific to them as a player or their position. They deserve better than that. Yeah. And our responsibility as coaches is to help them, through that process of a setback, and that's fine. However, when you look at the feedback that they've been given to take away and work on, and I think I'm being kind when I say this, some of it is generic. Yeah. And that's not, and parents see through that. Kids see through that.
They're no daft.
No. And I just think that, I get a wee bit, I get a kind of, At first it was there was a bit of kind of almost animosity towards the process. But the more I think about it, and the more kids I spoke to 2 boys on Wednesday night, and they were absolutely gutted. And it's now went from animosity to, to being annoyed about it, to actually being emotional about it now, because it's not good enough. It's not good enough. We're not a big enough country where we will have a plethora of talent coming through year on year. We have to maximise the small player pool that we have.
I think so. There's so many things to unpack there when it comes to the pathway, but just on your last point there, the player number or the player pool that we have access to is something that I very much feel that needs to be nurtured, developed, grown, and understanding that I think today we're probably not going to solve all the problems of the pathway system. Might potentially highlight a few issues, hopefully come up with a few other ideas that we can maybe think about and look at. It's just things we need to be put in place. And as you say, there's so many people who've come that's going, the system is fundamentally flawed. So let's have a look at that. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But I think there is a clear thing that there's very much, there's individual players or parents or coaches out there who will probably all have their own thought or opinion on it. And myself as a coach and a teacher, I've got my perspective and point of view on it as well. So we'll do our best to take it apart bit by bit. I think for me, if we're looking at it, I'd like to go right to the start and go the nomination / trial process. It's interesting. We're from the West, but I teach and I coach in the Cali region. So I can only speak about from what I really know in that area, where it seems that there are huge numbers chucked in for maybe 1 or 2 events, and from that the huge numbers are very much cut by almost 50%. I think just a very simple fundamental thing of if we're nominating, I don't think there has to be a fixed number of players per club, because talent is talent.
Well,
pushing forward, I would like to see probably more trials, let's use that word trial, more trials spread out across, say, a week to 10 days, where you're actually capping the number of players at say 30. And what I would then actually do is, from your 30, is do we then need to look at, do we put them into, say, front 5, middle 5, back 5, sort of positional ones, so that you can actually maybe have, here are the available dates for the front 5s, and we're going to have 4 options available for you. The middle 5 players are going to go here, back 5 players there, so we can actually really look at each of these players and hone in on them so they get more time on ball, more exposure, and then you can hopefully have the coaching staff who have then been put into that area to look at these kids. You get a lot more time with them. You can then hopefully just the basics of get a name, get a face, take a picture, double check email addresses, phone calls, your coach, your school, who's nominated you, put all that together in almost like a player profile pack, so that when it comes to information you want to give that person or people around that player, it's readily available. It's an admin task that should be easily done, so that during the trial process, trial 1, okay, Jimmy comes along, he's really excelled, we're really impressed with him, that's great. Okay, what does he maybe need? Okay, we can think about Jimmy later on. We can move to the next stage. I think there needs to be some form of record of player, like a player profile built up. So there's actually an ongoing file for each kid. Something we do in school. Something I do with my players. It's Billy Basic. It doesn't be huge screeds, but that's a thing that needs to be done so that clear feedback can be given from the first trial onward.
Absolutely. And I think the trial, what does the trial look like? For me, it should be a series of festivals. Yeah. That's my opinion. Because that's the way, and folks say, a bit of a dinosaur graph, you always see back in the day, well, it worked.
Yeah.
Because quality came through. More quality came through then than it is now.
Yeah.
Now, and, the Scotland Under-21 team that I played in, I don't know, Jason White became a cap, Marcus DeRollo, Gordon Ross, Chris Patterson, Andy Hall, Tom Palmer, Rob Christie was there. These guys all went
Exceptional talent.
Aye. Yeah. Oh, these guys all went on. So that system worked. So for me, I would take it back to the bare bones. So what I would say is, if you have say you're coaching in North Lanarkshire, so you have players nominated to go to a North Lanarkshire festival, and the coach sees all the, say, 60 kids in North Lanarkshire under 15 level playing.
Yep. And
then they'll pick a squad. Then that squad will play against South Lanarkshire. It will play against East Renfrewshire. It will play against Renfrewshire. It will play against Inverclyde, who are all doing the same thing. Then, and you hold those games and events over a series of 5 to 6 weekends. So the best players in the area of where they're playing are given an opportunity, 5, 6 opportunities, because you could have one player who has a bad day and then he's cut.
Yeah.
So you keep that squad together and run those series of festivals. Where my bugbear is that who's identifying and selecting the talent.
So there's a great point, is which coaches or which selectors are put in place. I mean, from all you sometimes see from my perspective is names at in the small print in the footer at the bottom of a team sheet.
Yep.
We probably know a lot of these names come up, and time again it's the same people year in, year out. But where is the aspiration for an aspiring coach perhaps to maybe get their name in the hat? Should it be, are we just default selecting these coaches, just going, they did it last year so they can do it again?
I think there's an element of that.
I think that is a system that should almost be looked at. I mean, should it be...
Should be a recruitment process.
A recruitment process, so like a job application form.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean? Like, here are the dates, what are you available? I'm an aspiring coach. I'm always looking to get a little bit better so that I can give better for myself, for the kids that are in the teams that I coach. Would I be able to fully commit to a pathway system for a sustained length of time? Probably not personally in my circumstance where I am now, but I'd love to go along and see what is going on at a trial process. What are they looking for in some of the sessions, or even here are some of the games. I'd love to come on board and just be, I'll be kit man for the day, just so I can be near around it. Can't give you all my time, but I think that we need to broaden that net as well and make sure we're getting the right people in for different perspectives and point of view.
Yeah, and I know they use the development officer workforce for that. And don't get me wrong,
there's not enough of them, is there?
No, and there are some. I mean, obviously in the East, and there's some very good development officers in the East area. But you're asking potentially a development officer who's maybe just out of school.
Yeah.
And what actually experience does he have of coaching players and identifying talent? You also have, and let's be honest, some clubs employ development officers to play for their first team.
Right, okay.
It means they'll no leave.
Yeah.
And it's happened in the past, and it probably still goes on now. So, probably not so much. So, okay, although that player is ingrained in the club and he's been at the club a long time, what does he know about coaching? How, what's he looking for? And I also think it's a kind of two-pronged process. It's who's identifying the talent, and then what's the criteria? What is the actual criteria that is given down from
the top table?
From the top table to say, right, this is what we're looking in a scrum half, a standoff, a centre, a prop at under 15 level. I don't think that there is a general, kind of, how would you describe it, kind of broad spectrum of what they expect from, or what they want the players to work on. But in terms of position specific, I don't think they actually know.
I think I agree 100% with that comment there. I don't think there's a clear... I think as someone who nominates players...
I'll tell you what they're looking for, a big athlete.
Big. I was going to say, like, you beat me to it there. If you asked any of my kids, as in current third years, who have either trialled and not been successful, or my 4th, 5th, 6th year kids who are now either probably no longer part of the pathway system because they've had that cut, they've been told no, I think they would all say they just pick the big kids. The kids who are biggest, the kids who are fastest, the kids who are strongest. Now, that is an out-and-out performance marker at this age of 14, 15, 16, potentially up to 17, 18, 19. Late development sport, there's now so much more evidence to go out there, and statistically, if you just spend an hour...
And if you look at the thing that Des Ryan shared...
Which was a great slide. I'm glad you shared that with me. Yeah.
We are picking the biggest kids at that point.
Whereas I'm not saying... Now, some of those, there's outliers. You might just have the biggest kid, the fastest kid, who is actually still technically very, very good. Mm-hmm. Credit to that player.
Yep.
However, the kid who's maybe that stone lighter, 2-3 inches shorter, who's got a really good skill set, but physically when they carry or they're in the collision area, they're weak in that area against those bigger, physically matured kids. That kid gets overlooked because it just looks, for a performance factor, they're just getting steamrolled. So, no, I think as someone who nominates players, and I think very smart about who I'm nominating and why I'm nominating, as in, is it someone who I feel at this age and stage for their position? I always come from that. Can they do X, Y, and Z? Can the back row carry, tackle, break down? That's really what I'm looking at. Offload's really exciting. Outside backs, how is their catch pass? Have they got a kick game? Inside players, in the kind of the front five, how is their set piece? Are they strong? Are they really flexible? Is there good catch and pass? I think about those things because if I was to select, and I'm not saying I should be the person who's selecting. This isn't a job application form for me. It's more we really need to be looking at the skill set of these players. I tell my players all the time, do your job. Every kid's got a superpower. What is the one thing you're really good at? You do that in every session. You do that in every game. But be mindful of what you're not so good at. That's what training's all about. Really work on those areas. So for me, some players just do your job. Do your job very well. And I don't know, as a secretary, I would love to know before I perhaps select or nominate, before I nominate, what is it they're actually looking for? And is it just the big kid? Because if it is, we're wasting our time.
That was in one of the emails that was sent out to parents. The second criteria is that they'll take big, fast players who may not necessarily have rugby skills yet. I don't get that. I really don't get that. I don't get it.
Baffling.
You know, and it baffles me. You know, so I think for me that the way talent's identified is that I think there has to be a decision as to who's identifying the talent, who's selecting the talent, and are they of a standard where can they be trusted? Can they be trusted? Do they have the experience? Do they have the skill set? Do they have the foresight to see a player in a year's time? You know, or project in their own mind, well, he's maybe not ready now, but we'll keep him in because I think he'll come good.
Yeah.
These are decisions worth making. It's not that he's not ready now. Well, right, that's fine. He might not be fully ready now, but he might benefit from staying in the sessions and get better and then become a player who starts. You know, so I think they have to decide, is it going to, you know, would it be selectors? Would it be the development officer, workforce who's identifying the talent? Is it Scottish Rugby employees who's identifying the talent? Is it neutral? Is it people who, as you say, fill in a job application and say, I want to be a selector? And then they have to meet a criteria of their experience and qualifications. I think it needs to be more transparent. That's what I would say.
Yeah, as in transparent as in the selectors, the coaches, and the criteria for the players.
Yep.
So I think also if there's a higher degree of transparency through the entire system, I think players and parents might also then benefit from that. For the fact that I think they would also then understand that you could nominate a player, and if that player then perhaps goes along to a couple of sessions, whatever that format looks like, but they go along knowing that it's clearly what is perhaps expected of them as, say, a lock or as a centre or a fullback. Mm-hmm. And if they're only maybe meeting criteria of, say, 3 out of 5 things, when they're given that feedback, we're short in 2 out of these 5 areas, so we need to go and work on those things. So I think there's...
Or we've got 5 scrum halves who are all really good. We'll take them all.
Correct.
Why would you cut 3?
Again, Scotland can't afford to do that.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
You know, no, we've got one, or we've got 2 big second rows. We don't need a third. You know, or we've got, you know, 2 guys who can jackal over the ball. However it is, you take all the talent, no matter what position they are. Not just picking 22 players that will cover a squad. You know, if it's 22 players and there's, I don't know, 7 backs in the bench, well, so be it. If that's the best talent, throw the shackles off and do it that way.
The best rugby players would be the ones who are in the group, just the best players.
Aye.
Now, you're not necessarily picking a team right there and then to go, well, that's my 1 to 15. Mm-hmm. No. It's a player pathway development system. Do you know what I mean? You can phrase it any way you want, but realistically, we're trying to identify players who at that current stage are probably stronger across all aspects of the game. Mm-hmm. That's what we want to try and identify. I think those players in that system or that process should then be supported, given that extra coaching and feedback. But also, similarly for me, I suppose I'm always mindful of, I've had a few kids who have been told no in the last sort of 2 or 3 years. Those kids have been told no with little to no feedback, no, go work on this, we'll bring you back in. I actually think there's scope, if we're looking at potential suggestions of how we can make the system better. I think there should be this is our core group of exceptional talent, and that might be, say that's 25 players.
Yep.
Now that might include 7 locks and 3 scrum halves and 5 10s. Fine, it's not necessarily a team, but that's our core group that we want to develop. I still think there's probably a similar number, potentially even a larger number of players who, well, we need to think long term here. Where might that player be in a year, 6 months, 2 years' time? So where's the late developer?
Even at 16s. We're not talking about 19s and 20s, as well.
As a teacher, we have that thing sometimes, like, so we're a couple of weeks away from summer holidays. Like, you always get quite excited to come back in August and just go,
who's taking a stretch?
Who's taking a stretch? And sometimes what have you eaten in 6 weeks? And it's sometimes for the kids, because they're growing at such a rapid rate, but
they were cut 3 months ago.
So therefore they're not playing. And you're like, that's why I think there's your core group. I think there needs to be another group that actually, when the core group are, say, training, I actually still think that other groups should be involved in that.
That's what Irish provinces do.
Yeah, so I think there's huge scope. And then when we're talking about transparency or the coaches and the selectors and who we bring in, I'd say there's argument for probably a coaching team of 10, 12. So you might have 4 or 5 key coaching specialists to work with. These are the players we've identified as in, if we want to use that exceptional word, exceptional currently. Doesn't mean this group aren't exceptional. They're still great players. They're developing, but they still deserve the same amount of coach exposure. So when we're picking that selectors group, when we're picking that coaching staff group to work with a certain region, I think we're going to be looking at training areas, whether they be indoor, outdoor, different rugby clubs. There's a whole other pitch right there. There's a whole other set of resources. Get them training as well. Their training might look slightly different because they are developing. So it might be more time on the ball, or less pressure from a defender on the ball, or it might be a case of more isolated skills because, say, it's front row forward. Right, okay, we've identified there's 4 exceptional in that group. We've actually got 6 good, really good, potentially great players here, but their ball carrying is not as strong as them. Well, you get better by training with good players, great coaching exposure, working on individual skills. Those are things they might not necessarily get at their club. And I'm not slating the club or the school they've come from. It's just the nature of the beast.
And who's coaching them once they have been selected? And this isn't. I think some people have kind of perceived the last kind of 2 podcasts as, it's just like, the union's not doing this, the union's not doing this, the union's not doing that. And, it's from a place of, well, it's just not good enough. Yeah, it's not good enough. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to offer solutions at the same time. And what some people have to remember is that our views are coming from a place of experience and skill. We're not just 2 guys who's rocked up and just decided to start a podcast and annihilate Scottish rugby. That's 14 years experience as a head coach, having been a development officer for a number of years, coached many players over the years. It's a case of, we feel I feel, you feel, we feel we have answers. However, those views need to be listened to because we're on the ground. Yeah. In my business, I'm on the ground every single day with kids from 11 to 16, all who want to play for Glasgow, all who want to play for Scotland, and all who expect something better than what they're experiencing at the pathway at the moment, and it's not happening.
Yep.
And for me, that leads me to the next point, is who's coaching? I look at team lists and I see coaches, allocated to maybe Edinburgh under 18s or Edinburgh under 16s, and I'm going, who's that? Who's that? Is that, and I'm not having a go at anyone in particular, are they the best? coaches in the area, or is it because they coach at Boroughmuir? They coach at Boroughmuir. Boroughmuir have a strong youth section. He's the man to coach Edinburgh under-16s. Wait a minute. Really? And there again, comes to the criteria, what they're looking for within coaches.
Yeah.
What experience, what's their speciality, what's their, their area of expertise, or are they just, they've been in the system, so therefore they must be the best coaches. And I would make that, again, I'm not sure if it is a
selection
process or a recruitment process, but it certainly should be. And I have made it aware to certain people who are involved in the Edinburgh area that I would be willing to get involved, whether it's as a coach or whether it's as a development officer. Fell on deaf ears. Deaf ears. Now, I've coached 14 years as head coach. I've been a specialist skills coach for Scottish Rugby. I've coached various age grade teams, Glasgow 16s, Glasgow 18s, nothing. So you're telling me, and this isn't a pitch, by the way, this is just an example of what goes on.
No, I understand, yep.
This is an example of what's going on, is that are you telling me that someone of my experience is not going to make a difference? Well, I know it is. And that's not me being arrogant, that's me being factual. So, for me, we're not picking the best players and we're not picking the best coaches. So, when that happens, what chance have you got?
Yeah.
And now that'll put noses out of joint that I've said that. Probably some of the coaches who are coaching Edinburgh 16s or Edinburgh 18s or Glasgow or whoever, they'll be like, who's this guy? Well, it's apparent because of how our players are developing.
Mm-hmm.
It's apparent because of the feedback that you get given from parents who actually some of them have played rugby a long time and played representative rugby. Yeah. They are watching sessions and they are watching how they're delivered and they are watching the content of the sessions and they are saying, this is not good enough. And that's me being kind when I say that.
Yeah.
This is not good enough. That's me being very, very kind. If I had to go to the bare bones, they're saying this is shit. Yeah. And what experience, again, does that give, players?
I can remember just from what you're saying as in the quality of the actual process that the players are going through. You've touched on it, that parents who have played rugby, so they know what they're talking about. They know what they should be ideally seeing. They should be seeing I suppose, a challenging environment for the kids to push them out their comfort zones. It's that classic thing of coaches are, I suppose, it's a bit like teaching in that sense, that they are two different beasts, but we want to try and expose these players to find out what they can do, find out what potential barriers they have, and then just like teaching and coaching, it's your job to then find ways to reduce those barriers so that the kids can then improve. They need to have the feeling of challenge and success in the session. That's very important to get both. As I opened my point there, I can remember one player in particular who, very talented player, still playing, but went along to the pathway process, and he actually took himself out of it because the enjoyment just was not there, because the environment he was in, it was super serious. There was no camaraderie. There was no. He used the values word himself, just going, all the things that I get at school and at club with my friends, my peers, all these things, that environment, I enjoy it. So when I'm out there in the peeing rain, a Tuesday and a Thursday or a Sunday morning or a Saturday, I'm doing it because I actually really enjoy it. But when I went to this thing, it was just that was sucked out of it. And I said to him, you really should be doing at a level higher than you're doing. He's like that. Not because he's lazy. He's like that.
I don't enjoy that.
I didn't enjoy it.
And I
spoke with his feet, and I'm like that's. We're talking then about, I think at the age, we're talking maybe 15, 16 at the time. That's huge maturity.
I spoke to a boy who played Scotland 18s last year, and they said it was toxic. I spoke to his parents about it, and they said the environment was toxic. Now, toxic's an easy word to throw out there because it captures your imagination. It must be really bad. It must be really bad. But this kid was as honest as the day long. He had no axe to grind with anyone. He was up nor down about the coaching he had received, but he said the environment was toxic. Now, was it because he maybe wasn't picked? Was it sour grapes? I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. Was it sour grapes because he wasn't picked?
Or was it the fence at some point? Yeah.
But however, you speak to too many people who say the environment's not right. Not everybody says it's toxic, of course they don't. But there's too many people saying the environment's not right in terms of not just think about rugby players, but child development, player development.
I think that's one of my biggest drivers, and you kind of alluded earlier that some people are going like, who's this guy to say this, and who's this guy to say this, and that kind of stuff. I feel almost driven and to the point of almost compelled to try and stand up and say something, because I see the fallout for the kids.
Yeah.
And I know the kids don't necessarily have at this age and stage, to have the courage to step up and say things themselves. So I'm quite honest and open with a lot of my players, and they know that I work really hard for them. I work really hard for my school. I do what I can to try and get really good positive experiences in rugby. And I think that's why when you get a player going, didn't enjoy that, but I'll play for you.
Yeah.
So environment's really important there. That's probably one of my big whys is, how can I make sure that the process of what I deliver to my kids on a daily basis is better? But some of that shouldn't be then overlooked in a pathway system. They're still developing physically, mentally, emotionally. They still need to.
And the mental and emotional things are massive.
Overlooked. And I think that's where, I know clubs have welfare officers and they do great things. I'm wondering, I don't actually know, so I'm going to throw a comment out. I would maybe be presumptuous that maybe in the pathway system that is not there, or if that comes in, that might be coming in at the upper end.
Top end.
But that for me should be right in at the foundational level, as I touched on right at the start about that kind of building that player profile, that player folder, just to understand. Has someone actually just sat down with that kid and just spent 5 minutes with them and just going, how are they feeling? What's going on in your world?
Yep.
Or the potential barriers that child might have actually just had to have gone through to physically get themselves there to trial at that point in time.
Yep. And boys and girls.
Boys and girls.
I've got a daughter. I've got 2 daughters. And for me, from girls, have to be coached differently, spoke to differently,
100%.
and you'll know that as a teacher. And I think that as a father, taking your girl to a pathway session to then being cut, I think that's a very vulnerable. Do we look at it from that perspective? Do we look at it from the parents of a girl or the parents of a boy? How do we? I don't think there's anything in place that does that. I think it's just generic, same. We'll deal with exactly, rather than dialing down into it and saying, actually, well, we actually need to approach it this way on this occasion. And I genuinely don't think there is. And I think when you look at where we are at, obviously people are talking about the podcast that you and I are doing. And just to reinforce again to people who's watching this, is that this is about trying to be part of the solution.
Yes.
It's not about
it comes from
just
a place
identifying
of care.
the negatives. And I'm doing it, and I know you're doing it for the same reason, is that I work with young players every single day in life. And I speak to parents every single day in life. And that's what drives me. What drives me is making the next generation of player better. Now, folk might think, oh, that's fluffy and that's nice, and he's saying that for a soundbite. However, when you're in it, you don't know you don't know the feeling or the responsibility that you carry until you're doing it every day. Until you're seeing a young face look at you and listen to everything that you're taking on board because he or she wants to get to the next level. Now, I don't think they understand that. I don't think there is a deep enough understanding of kids on an emotional basis. And it's overlooked. And there's something I'm going to come on to in a minute with in terms of how they're coached at these academy sessions as well, is that until we get a structure where players feel valued, and I actually think the feedback should be 1-to-1.
Oh yes,
because these guys, you've got to remember, these guys who are giving feedback are employed, right? That's their job.
Mm-hmm.
So their job is not to sit behind a computer and send an email to someone. Their job should be, when they're employed by the governing body, to deliver feedback on a 1-to-1 basis. Whether it's a Zoom call, whether it's a phone call or whether it's a face-to-face, and I would give the parents the option, and it should be delivered that way.
I could not agree more. Like the feedback.
Because then, and maybe this isn't why it's done, you get to challenge it.
And you're hitting everything on the head that I'm struggling to then come up with in more, yup, that is correct.
Because I don't think they want to be in a situation where they're challenged on the feedback.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure how individualised the feedback actually is.
I also think that we need to be looking at who gets that feedback.
Yeah.
First and foremost, player and parent, non-negotiable.
Teacher.
I would also then think the club/school who's then nominated that player. I've been nominating players for over a decade. I've never once had a quick phone call. I would love, it doesn't have to be totally in depth, just let the player and parent know first, non-negotiable. On the back of that, maybe a week later, but within a reasonable length of time, because the first thing the player does is, I also don't even know if the kid makes it through, and I'm the nominated coach. Why have I not just got a quick text message or a heads up or a notification on Scrum, something, an email going, just a heads up, such and such made it through, such and such hasn't, feedback's been given to those players, we'll get back in touch with you in a week's time. Fine, I'll take that on the chin.
Yeah.
So I then have to have that really awkward conversation with a player, let's call him Doogie. Doogie's maybe coming back in for my session or maybe on the way out, just those small moments, not in front of a group, just to be nudged a wee bump from the elbow, just going, right, Doogie, how did we get on? He's like that. No one. Right, okay. You then, I'm very mindful of, you need to make sure that you show the right level of emotional and physical support to that child at that place. Sometimes players need an arm around their shoulder. Someone's going, hey, I'll catch up later about that. Don't worry about it. Let's go have a great session. So you need to get them back on the horse, put the ball back in the hands and let them remember they're a great player. Mm-hmm. It's that, I think, is, as you say, for some people that's their job, and that is such a simple administration task. For me, again, I'm maybe using this dream idyllic world of teacher player profile, that we should have pictures, name, age, date of birth, contact details, schools, clubs they're at, related to, information should go in that, and that should be carried with them from 15 to 20 to full professionalism. We need to have that.
And they can't turn around and say they don't have time to do it, because teachers have to do it every day.
The number one thing that I am generally asked for, that's not quote unquote part of my day-to-day remit of delivering quality learning teaching, is extra feedback on that kid, whether it be a concerned parent who's contacted the school, rightly as their duty, that will go to pupil support. Pupil support then contact their teacher, just going, hi there, I know you're exceptionally busy, but can you give me 5 minutes of your time on a breakdown of Sarah? How is she getting on in class? What are peer relationships like? And the answer is always yes, but it never comes at that dream moment. You know what? I've got 5 minutes right here and right now to do that. But I guarantee professionalism outweighs everything. That is done. That is not ignored.
Professionalism.
So why is that not then applicable as part of if we're talking about a pathway system? And again, it's that I would just love to see a bit more care given to the players and the families and support around that, so that when the hammer falls for good news or bad news, there's a clear plan from top to bottom here of who we're picking, why we've picked them, why they've maybe been deselected, what they can work on, how we're going to support them, the coaching team who are in charge of on-field sessions, coaches who are welfare officers who are in charge of the feedback and the communications, the team managers, even there needs to be a much clearer top to bottom plan with structure, so that when that inevitable no, which is currently happening, I would love to see that turned into not just now. We'll maybe touch on that later.
No,
but there should be a timeline there. There's people out there whose jobs there is to organise this top to bottom, that should be firmly put in place, so that I would even know as a nominating coach, or the club knows as a nominating club, that, well, they're going to go along to this number of sessions. There's then a 2-week grace period to then formulate decisions. We should then know then. It's a bit like sitting your exams. Sitting exams in May. The kids know results come out then in August. Shouldn't be we'll be back in touch. What does that look like?
Aye.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think when you look at some of the clubs as well, I think the union have to be stronger with some of the bigger clubs. You know, some of the bigger clubs are just a conglomerate just now. Mm-hmm. You know, they're taking players from everywhere. Mm-hmm. You know, because And they have been told, certain kids have been told by certain individuals, you need to go and play there. Why? So you've told a kid to go and play there. Why? How do you know that club has got space? How do you know they don't have 2 10s already, or 2 9s, or 4 tight head props? No, you just need to go there because that's the best club for you to go and play at. Now that to me smacks of, we want to get all the best players into the best clubs. We want to get guys to Boroughmuir, we want to get guys to Stirling, we want to get guys to GHA, we want to get guys to Mar. We want to get guys to, clubs like that. Is that because it's easier for them to go and see the talent?
Potentially, aye.
So then that's about, that's not, that again doesn't care for the individual, because you don't know what a kid's like unless you engage with them. You know that yourself. Sending a kid to play, I don't know, pick at Ayr might not be the right thing to do, because it might not be the right environment for him. Whereas he might get something out of playing at Kilmarnock, and there's this fascination. And clubs don't, and listen, the clubs have got a responsibility. I've said this before. How many under-18s do you need? 70. 70. One club has 70 under-18s. How are they all playing? And where have they all came from? And that's the question. Grangemouth, Falkirk, or Kilmarnock, Irvine, or, you could go on. But there should be, and the union should be strong enough to turn around and say, right, we're capping you at this. Mm-hmm. We're capping you at 35, at 16s. And, but clubs are scared to do that because they could potentially lose a player, but also it's income. It's a membership every year.
Bums on seats.
Yeah.
Bums on seats.
But I think that, yeah.
So just backpedal slightly. So talking about sending a player to go and play, use Ayr. You could pick any big club. You can pick Curry, you could pick GHA, you could pick Mar, Stirling County, any big club you want. All right. Other clubs are available for anyone I've missed who might want to come and have a pop at me later. But a strong conversation that I've had countless times with players, and from a development point of view, through a coach who cares, through I want to see my players on team sheets at 19, 20, 25. I'd love to see a player who's like that. He's picking up 100 caps for Kilmarnock, for Hillfoots, for Stirling County, for Perth, for any club, a club centurion. That in itself is a huge achievement. The undertaking that individual's gone on with that particular club. So I always have the conversation with the players going, you need to understand you've come from a youth environment, learning and developing constantly, that just because of where you live, you've been probably exposed to quite a high level, as in like Stirling's the local club. So you've probably had access to Cali Cup wins, Scottish Cup runs, this, that and the other, potential access to a pathway system. It's all been on your doorstep. So they make the automatic leap of, I'm now a man, I'm 18, in their minds, to play men's rugby. I am going to go to uni in, say, Edinburgh, so I'm going to go straight to Watson's or Edinburgh Accies, and I'm like that. Okay, that's your choice, but you need to understand that you might go there and you might be 7th, 8th choice back rower. But I'm a great back rower. I've just won the under-18s cup. You're like, good for you. But no offence, you are not physically, mentally, or emotionally ready to take on a 32-year-old with 20 years playing experience in front of you who knows how to play the game. Because you might be that wee bit half step quicker now, and I know you're only going to get better, but they're experienced because they're developed, they're not developing. So here's a crazy idea. Take a wee jump down a couple of leagues, and that's so you could use the GHA or the Ayr argument then go play at Kilmarnock, go play at Hillhead Jordan Hill, go play at West. You don't have to go straight into the Premiership or National 1. Go look at a regional team or go look at a National 3.
Why did they do that?
They do that though because they want, I think, the kids in this environment, and I'm putting some of my kids who have over the last 13 years in the firing line, they're no bad kids, but because they've had a certain badge on their chest and they've had a certain level of success, whether or not they've earned it or just been part of great teams, that they automatically think that that's the level, and actually it's not.
I think there could be people nudging them to go to those clubs as well.
Probably.
Not just a case of, you're going to Edinburgh Uni, you've been involved in the pathway or you've been involved in the academy setup, that's where you go.
So I actually think that the party line of the conversation that I have is, and I'm sure I'll have it again in years to come, will be go be part of a club where you get to play. Because you do not go from developing to developed unless you play. Sitting on the bench for the 2s or the 3s, you know yourself, if you don't have, then you're going from an environment with loads of support at home, or in theory. You've got a mum or a dad, an auntie, a grandpa, a big brother, someone who's taking you to training. Make sure your kit's washed. Make sure you've got some money in your back pocket to help get yourself some food after. Whatever it is, it's done. In some capacity, that's done. Not every player, but it's done. You're now fully self-sufficient, and you're asking all that to be competitive against huge players in front of you. Go play at a club where you're actually going to get to play, because that is where, if we're looking at the underlying thing here, is probably developing players, developing talent, late development sport. We need to keep the players in the game. They need to be playing at a club where they get to, one, probably play their first or second position, and they get to play at an environment or a level that is competitive for them. There's nothing wrong with going to go and play at, say, I'm not chucking clubs under the bus. Go play at West. Go play for their 2s for a year. See if you're that good, you get pulled into the 1s. Play at West once for maybe a year or 2. You know what? Glasgow Accies just down the road there. There you go. There's a bigger club playing at a slightly higher level. But you're taking it in the right stages. That keeps players in the game. Whereas I think we're doing the player and the person a disservice by just going, talented player, okay, no bother. Or you're going to head through to Glasgow? Right, you need to go play at Hawks or GHA. They're not ready for that yet. There's no space for them yet.
And there's one thing that's just jumped into my mind, is that how are these kids that when they are selected to play for Glasgow 16s, how are they coached? You know, one parent told me they were playing 18-a-side touch rugby on a pitch. 18-a-side touch rugby on a pitch. And you're like, right, do you do contact? No. What do you mean? Oh, we play small-sided games and catch and pass, and then we go in the gym. Eh? And then they go and play in a district championship and get smashed. Well, we never done any tackling. We never done any defence. What? You know, so you're like, right, okay. So we've identified that, identifying the talent has to be better. The coaching has to be better.
But it's not happening.
So if that's not happening, it just breaks down. And that's currently where we're at. It's a broken system.
Yeah.
No, it's a broken system that doesn't function, it doesn't work. And, you know, Neil Graham reached out to me on Instagram.
Good bloke.
Yeah.
A lot of time for Neil Graham. He's a very busy man who works really hard at Scottish Rugby. So I know people maybe think, oh, we're bashing Scottish Rugby.
No.
Again, we've touched on this. This comes from a place of care and nurture for a sport that's given us probably just about everything that is really strong and positive in our lives. Is probably linked back to rugby and the people and the relationships that we had. And Neil's a great guy.
Neil's reached out.
And wants to chat about this?
Yeah, he's not. I gave him a couple of dates. I never heard back from him, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get something sorted in the coming weeks. Because again, it is coming from, you know, let's be part of the solution. Someone said to me, oh, well, during the week, why don't you be part of the solution instead of creating more of the problems? I says, well, I don't create the problems. Yeah. I identify the problems. I says, but however, our next podcast was about how do we fix it. Yeah. So you can critique that and you can criticise it any way that you like. However, I don't think people, if they've listened and watched what we're talking about today, will be able to pick many holes in it, because it's coming from a place of experience, of skill, and knowledge, and it's really up to the people who are in place making decisions as to whether they want to listen or not. Yeah. And if they don't want to listen, well, unfortunately, they're going to keep hearing us, because something has to change.
Yeah, and similarly, I would love to have a sit down with some of the high Higians from the top table and understand their perspective and their point of view and the challenges that they face. Again, I'm not adverse to just going, I mean, there must be a monetary thing in this. There must be a financial thing, in the sense of, you know, the union are having to float 2 professional teams in the country. And the size of Scotland is, then that will be a drain itself
in terms of how finances are allocated, because that's your two showpiece teams. However, if you decide that the system now is good enough, then the next decade you're not going to have teams that's competitive, because that money that they have in bringing in the odd superstar, like when they brought in Nico Matawalu,
great player.
Guys like that, DTH Van der Merwe. As the years go on, these players are becoming less and less, and you can see that because of the financial constraints. So, for me, they look down a barrel of a gun to a certain degree. Did they say, right, now we have to stop now, change it, fix it, and go through some pain in order for the next 5 to 10 years for us to produce more talent, better talent, more numbers of talented players? Or do they keep going down the route that they're going, where they're bringing in less and less foreigners each season to make a difference, but yet at the same time they're hamstrung because the system just now doesn't produce enough talent? So for me, it's a ticking time bomb. It's ready to go at any point.
Pal of mine said it's a tinderbox, Chris.
Oh, it's ready to go, and I think the way you look at Murrayfield yesterday for a URC semi-final.
What a game, by the way.
I know.
In terms of product on the pitch.
Yeah. But it's not, Murrayfield wasn't full.
No.
So it's not as if, and that's another argument, but, so it's pretty apparent that without the sponsorship and full Murrayfields in November in the Six Nations, and I just think that, I genuinely think that it's it's ready to tip at any point. And I think, okay, financially they can turn around and say, well, we're secure, but they're still servicing debt every year. And while they're servicing debt, the product on the pitch is becoming less and less, because the investment for Franco Smith and the Edinburgh coaches is becoming less and less in terms of the quality that they're able to bring in. But at the same point, and I just said this a minute ago, is that the talent that's coming up is not in enough numbers. So for me, there's going to be this vacuum where it's just going to hit at one point, whether it's now, whether it's 5 years down the line, but I think it will hit. And unless something's done now with regards to how the pathway's set up, then, if you look at how many quality players are coming out the under 20s and becoming full internationals, how many, and guys will rhyme off Harry Patterson, fine, Freddie Douglas, fine, okay, there is talent there coming through. There's not enough.
I think that's where one of the big things I was thinking about this coming in today is we have the need to potentially top up or cycle players in and out of this pathway journey. I think there's a lot of, at the minute, hard and fast. Once you're in at 15s, you've got a good chance of being at 16s to be to 18s to be to 19s to 20s.
It's harder to get out than that.
It's hard to, so I would then actually go and advocate for, and the kids who are told not just now. They're not being told not just now. So I would actually say, if we want aspirationally as a nation, as custodians of the game, as coaches and people who care, that I think that we need to be looking at that as a bigger group, so that we are producing more talent and that we can then give those players that option. So when you have, say, across your whatever your trial game process looks like, or whatever the actual quote-unquote trials look at in terms of skill level, performance level, height, weight, all those the factors that are potentially looked at currently, I think that is a system that needs readdressed. But we need to keep more players involved, so that that other player pool of, say, 50, 60 players have been told, not just now, but here is your feedback. Here's your timeline to go and work on it. Here is what I'm going to check back in at you. That needs to be coaches, that needs to be parents, that needs to be development officers, that needs to be the selectors. If that's what we touched on earlier, they need to be involved in that process, so that it's not just this snapshot of there's a trial, there's a squad, there's a game or a series of games, and you're done, and then we'll pick up again a year later. It needs to be something that is constantly going, that you need people in place for, so that we're in, as you say, staying in the bar of the goal. It's crisis for long term that we're not producing enough homegrown talented players to have competitive.
Scotland under 20s against Ireland under 20s yesterday, 60 points. You know, and
I think some of this is an issue in.
And I'm not saying
that's
and I'm not saying that's the under 20 coach's fault, but it's symptomatic of the system that's producing them.
Yes, we need.
And by the way, what I would do is see the, and this might be controversial. See the independent schools. I'd cut them loose.
Right.
I'd cut them loose. I'd let them do what they do.
Yep.
I would let the likes of Dollar and Watsons and Merky do what they do, and this conference thing for me, the conference, you know, where we're talking about the best schools playing against the best clubs, I'm not convinced, because, and I'm not convinced it's the right structure for Scottish rugby. For me, the independent schools have always produced talent.
Mm-hmm.
They are well-oiled machines. They have quality individuals at every level, normally within the schools, and let them do what they do. And then invest in your state schools and your clubs. Invest in your state schools and your clubs, because realistically, that's the only way the game will go forward at age group level. Now, and I don't mean cut them loose as in get rid of, you know, disconnect from. That's not what I mean. What I mean is they've been doing it for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Right? Forever. And they've produced lots of talent. You know, I mean, I know what the structure's like at Dollar. Top structure. Right? I know what it's like at Watson's. Top structure. Let them do it. You know, let them play against each other. Let's sort out. That open conference for me is a stage too early. We're not at that stage yet. What my opinion is, what we should have done is we should have invested 2 or 3 years in getting the top club sides to play against each other. The very best club sides, and had 2 divisions.
And by club sides, we're talking
GHA, Mar, Ayr, Boroughmuir. Get them all in. Get them in. Instead of having a national cup, have a national league.
So we're talking then at 15, 16s, 18s.
15s, 16s, 18s. And then the progression from that would have been the open conference. I think we've done it the other way around.
Okay.
Now that might not resonate with a lot of people. A lot of people might think, what are you talking about? That's just a personal opinion. Because I think if you'd have done that, you would have a stronger club game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think we've done it the wrong way around, but I think what also needs to happen with this open conference is you have to have 2 divisions. Mm-hmm. You can't just have 1 division. You have to have 2 divisions, because then the aspiring clubs or schools, how do they get in there? You know, and I know there's a new intake this year, but over time, how
some good clubs and schools.
Absolutely. How do you get in there?
Yeah.
I just think and I think the investment should have been in the state schools and the clubs, and get that structure sorted first in terms of development officers. Be, you know, each club, the aim of every second club or each club to have a development officer, for each club to have a 15s, a 16s, you know, and an 18s. You know, Clydebank have a 15s, a 16s, and an 18s. Because if you have that, then you create more players. You have more talent to pick from, you know. Whereas currently what we're doing now is we're playing at it. We're playing at it. We're not really doing it. And these guys and I know the guys at Clydebank well, guys at other clubs as well, these people put in a huge amount of time, and the help they need is massive, and they don't get it. Mm-hmm. So for me, the starting point should be fix the pathway system, but at the same time, we have to reinvest in the state schools, make sure there's enough funding there for development officers per club, or every second club, whatever it is, however it looks, with the view of creating more teams at each club, and that's where your strength will come from.
I'm always mindful, because I try to proudly represent the state school kids as often as I can. And you look at the independent sector, I'm not here to bash them. I know a lot of great coaches, and fortunately I know a lot of players who've come through that sector as well. So I know these people, and I know the setups they've got. as you say, they're geared up almost because it's established to be more successful. I would 100% advocate that. There are so many more state schools. So if we're looking for more players or more talents, we are sleeping giants.
How can you not see that?
Who are crying out for support.
Too much like hard work, that's the problem.
Opportunities to play, clear structure, support lengths, pathways, partnerships. It's really difficult, and it's I understand because I was very fortunate 14 years ago when I landed my permanent contract at Wallace that I could go in and go, right, okay, I've got an opportunity to build a programme, and here I am 13, 14 years later, really quite proud of what I've built, but I'm the first person to go, how do I get better? How do I get better product for my kids? What partnerships can I build? What can I do to make what I've got going? And sometimes what is offered to me to go and participate in is now a case of, we're doing a pop-up festival for S1 and S2 boys, and it's 5 till 6:30, like that. Right, okay, that's a great opportunity. If I can support that and send some kids that's really good. However, for me, a mixed team on a minibus, off you go, will suit a lot of schools. I'm not saying no to that help. That needs to be put in place virtually every week, fortnightly. So there's clear opportunities to bring kids in and play. Doesn't necessarily suit me personally at this exact point because I'm now on that way. But why are we not looking to try and find more Chrissies in other schools who are me 10, 12 years ago who need the help to get the thing off the ground and running? The rugby sort of now, it does not take care of itself. But because there's rugby being played, kids are interested. So when they come along with very little to no playing experience, there's an opportunity, there's an outlet. So we can recruit more players. I've now got, looking ahead to next year, one of my training groups is a mix of S2, S3 boys. I've got 44 boys. 44 boys. It's mental. It's amazing for me. Like you say it loud, I'm so proud. But I'm actually more proud of the players and the parents and the family, and really proud of the school being able to give me the support to allow that programme to happen. But there's kids. I'm not saying they're all going to be pathway players. I'll play for Scotland. But it's a mix of S2 and S3 boys. Someone at some point who is employed should and knows, if you use that word selector or a coach, should be popping down to just go, Chris, you've got 4 or 5 kids who you want to have a look at.
It's a numbers game, right? The more numbers you have playing at schools, the more numbers you have playing at clubs, the more talent you've got to choose from, the more players you've got to choose talent from.
Yeah.
Currently what we have is clubs scrambling around to put youth section teams out. Now, if they're scrambling, Union must be scrambling to identify talent. You know, so you're like, For me, I'd like to think we've shown some insight and how we would fix it. You know, I think.
Do you think we need like additional groups for the players who are nearly there? So,
well, I remember Glasgow under 16 schools used to have an A and a B team.
Well, so it's kind of what I was alluding to. It popped into my head there. I'm just thinking if we have, we touched it, there's that core group, but there's this other group we're working with. Actually, now I know it's been great to see that sometimes I think of late that's happened is there's been like the early birthday group or the early developing group and the late developing group. I actually really like to see that because there's more players involved. If that's the way we're going, great. Is there scope to then actually add in arguably a third group or a fourth group and just go, right, you know what? There's our core group that we've identified as exceptional talent.
I don't think they have the staff for that.
So if we don't have the staff, when we're maybe going in circles a wee bit here and
no, but there are people who would do the job.
Who put their name to it, and that's why we're looking at that, having the clear process of selectors, coaches, some form of application review type process.
A coaching pathway.
Isn't that something?
Where is the coaching pathway?
There must be.
So if you're turning around and saying, right, we're going to have, I don't know, a Scotland under 19 squad, you'll normally find that someone who's employed with the union will be the head coach in that, or a development squad, and that's fine.
Makes sense.
But there is talent in the club game in Scotland, coaches who could be used or utilised in those positions. You're not telling me there isn't. There is. They just and this is where they don't help themselves. It's like an old boys' network to a certain degree.
Yeah.
You know, it's well, we know this coach, so he'll go and coach there, and we know this coach, and aye, but are they the best coaches? You know, so what we identifying coaches on now? We're identifying coaches on here. I go on one now.
The club you're at.
Here, this is me off. I'm off and running now.
Go.
Right. So here, you know, what are we identifying coaches at? What they done 10 years ago, or because they've always been in the system. You know, what about the coach last year? That I don't know. Coached an under-18 team, took them from nowhere, and all of a sudden they get to a final at Murrayfield. Well, that's not just by chance.
Correct.
That's because of the man who's led them.
Or the women.
Aye, or the women. Yep, or the women. Or, you know, what's happening? You know, who's identifying them? Because they're the people who are aspiring. They're the people who you want in working with these kids, because they're the people that will go the extra mile for the kids.
Yeah. Not
just people that will stand in their box and tick. And then, right, who's the next group? Right, you want people who are going to be creative, who are going to have a bit of, you know, personality about them, who are going to go-get-it attitude. And so the kids are like leaving the session going, that was great.
Yep. And that's it. That for me is, like, I maybe always come back to that pupil or that player perspective, is going, it needs to be great. That's how we keep them playing. Yep. It needs to be a great product for them.
Now, I know guys who in the development officer workforce who are very good coaches.
Yep.
Who are very good coaches, but are used in the PDH, right? And I'm like, hold on a minute. He's good enough to coach a regional age grade team. He's good enough to coach a national age grade team. Why is he not there? Because you've pigeonholed him to stay there. Wait a minute. That's not right.
And I think if we're looking at, so like I've been doing my level 3 this year, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that, because it's a great way for me to actually rub shoulders with other coaches. Because where I am, I'm in my little Wallace bubble, and it's great because I'm judge, jury, and executioner. Like, I've got a full autonomy and full control, and I'm only in that position because I've got a really supportive head teacher and a really good supportive PT. So like, Chris, if it's rugby, just bash on, run everything by us, just so we're aware of what's going on, but you've got full control, which is brilliant. But I'm now at the point of, I need help, I need support, I need it. It's unmanageable. But aspirationally, I put myself out there to go and do the level 3. That's self-funded, self-directed. It's additional work on top of my workload of what I'm already coaching. But it's great to rub shoulders with other coaches going, I would love to see them in action, see what they're doing in Clubland, or what's he doing as a school coach. I'd love to go and see that. There's no opportunity for, as you say, a coach pathway, a coach development going. I would love to go and be involved in, like, I'd love to go and watch some of those Glasgow sessions or Edinburgh sessions or Cali sessions or whatever they would be, and just go, oh, I can take that away. Oh, that was really good. Or similarly, just be able to sidle over and just go, have you actually thought about this before? Because that street needs to run both ways. I think as good coaches, you should never be closed off for more information, feedback, or be open to be challenged is a strong word, but in the sense of, I remember in one of our coaching conversations we had, part of the level 3 was, we were talking about player attributes and player profiling and what you're looking for, this, that, and the other. And there was a group of 6 of us, and me as the 6th. None of the other 5 touched on the mental or emotional aspect of the game. It was all technical, tactical, height, weight, strengths, pluses, negatives, and all like that. What about just how wee Jimmy is when he walks up to the session? Have you thought about that? You're not going to get a great session, or you're not going to get a great trial or a great version of him or her, any player, if no one's actually just going, how are you doing today? It could be something simple as just going, I was just getting shouted at because I was running late for this session. I actually now just feel really introverted. So the next person who opens up in that, right, don't be last, and you're last to get your boots on, you're last to change them, you just get roasted at. That player's probably just thinking, stuff it. We need to be mindful from the player and
definitely
that we need to be looking at that. That can't be overlooked. That I think for a coaching pathway as well as a player pathway, there should be opportunity for coaches to slide in and out of that. A core, key, consistent group with experience who have clear, defined roles, but also then have opportunities for players to come in and, coaches to come in and support that, so they can learn from, if they are the right coaches in place. But similarly, problem shared, problem halved. Get some more bodies round the campfire.
Yeah, and I think there are some coaches who are put in because of the clubs that they're involved in.
Or the schools.
Yep. Oh,
because
100%.
Certain clubs or schools are looked at more favourably than others.
I look at coaching lists and I'm like, where is he? Boroughmuir. I'm not saying that. I'm just picking that club name out there. I'm not saying they do that.
But could be Curry, could be GHA.
Could be Curry, right.
Could be Ayr, Stirling, anyone.
Right. There's the reason.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. And they've won 3 national under-18 cups. So he must be. Well, is that really? Is that what? Is that
And
how we're going to do it?
I'm not overly upset if that is the best.
But at least be honest
coach,
about it. You know, and I get what you're saying, but there has to be a process that every year they should have to apply for their role.
Yep. Or
even if it's not a paid role, even if it's a voluntary role, they still have a responsibility to coach the kids to the best of their ability. Because they've done it and because they're prepared to give up time, doesn't mean that they get to just rock up and coach.
No.
You know, they should be on, you know, individual programs as well as a coach. You know, if you're the head of an area, say head of Edinburgh, and you're in charge of putting the coaches in place for, you know, Edinburgh 18-16s, you know, if you're running that, it's a case of, right, okay, this is your second year of doing it. You know, analyse what they've done within the 2 years and give them a plan as to how to get better as coaches, not just because they're volunteers giving up their time.
Yeah.
You know, and I know we need volunteers, I know that. But if you're talking about the elite end, representative level, then there has to be something better.
There need to be the right people in place to make the right decision, the right choices to develop and grow the player talent that we have in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
That for me is fundamental. If we don't get that right, the end product at under 20s,
it's happening now,
is not going to be where it needs to be. The end product at women's under 21s, full women's squads, the number of homegrown Scottish players who are coming through. My kids regularly just flash up and show images. So who's this guy who's just been given a contract? He's like, what school's that? Like he's
African twins,
and you're like, that's the big one that a lot of my kids flashed up to me, and I'm a bit like, and they're like, what chance have you got? Another one showed me this kid might go on to be an absolute superstar. It's the big South African schoolboy who's 6'9", 100 something for Sebastian Vermeulen or something. I've maybe butchered his name, but he's bigger than big RG Simon. But straight at the Bulls aren't daft just going, right, let's put him in. Now that gets a lot of click because he's physically massive, he's huge. Now, great, he might still have to be able to catch and pass and play and do things, in which case the game's different in South Africa, so we can't then we can't then just
they
go
produce bigger players.
So fine, let them have the monsters. We're not going to produce those kids at 18 years old.
But what we can do is we can produce players that the country's produced for years, who they can offload, they can catch, they can pass, they can play with intensity. They've got a bit of flair, a bit of skill about them. Scotland teams are old, you know, where they throw the ball about and play. We can produce players like that.
That puts bums on seats.
It does. We're never going to produce a team of 8 Scottish players that are all over 120 kg and
6'9".
We're never going to do it. It's a waste of time.
We don't get enough sunshine.
Don't have enough grow bags. It's a waste of time.
Yeah,
you know, an absolute waste of time. You know, but we'll see.
So, do you have any final parting comments or anything to kind of sum up? Because we've player pathway.
I think the big thing for me in all of this is that fundamentally parents and players are identifying that the system doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And we're providing a vehicle now to get that out there. And having seen it firsthand, the system doesn't work. We want to help to try and make it work. But people have to be receptive within the 4 walls at Murrayfield to maybe take on board and engage with us and listen to the ideas that not only that you and I have, but some ideas that have been sent from parents on Instagram, coaches on Instagram, and some very well-known coaches on Instagram at the same point who are coaching in the Southern Hemisphere. In fact, there's a couple of papers I'm reading now from a coach in Australia, which it makes awesome reading. And there's so much that they could get from that. So for me, it doesn't work. We want to fix it. Hopefully, I think today we've identified some areas that would help fix it. But for me, it's a case of I'm not holding my breath, but at the same time, I have this anticipation that we might be able to make a difference. Not just us, the parents, the players, the rugby community in Scotland can make a difference for us to give our kids a better experience, for us to give our kids a better structure, and to give our kids a better opportunity at playing representative rugby.
I agree 100%.
So we'll see what comes after this. 88,000 views
on one
clip,
So
and over 2,000 comments on another on the same clip. 2,000 comments. No, 2,000 likes, 100 odd comments, and 88,000 views.
And again, we never set out on this journey to get likes or clicks or any of that. It's coming from a place or a duty of care.
Aye.
I love the game. I love the sport. I love playing it. I thoroughly enjoy coaching it. I love seeing players grow, learn, develop, and be successful in the sport, or take the values from the sport and implement them into their daily life. I'm just a teacher. I'm a nobody. I'm an absolute nobody in the grand scheme of things, but I care deeply and passionately about player development and welfare, so that I want to see them growing and playing and enjoying the sport that gave me so much. And when I see my personal players, who I am so heavily invested with on a daily basis, not necessarily on the grass sessions, but how invested I am with them, to hear them saying that they're having really negative experiences, or that simple, easy fixes are not happening, that, as you say, emotionally is a driver for me to go, we need to fix it. And that number of likes or comments or views was great feedback for you and I to go, this probably wasn't what was planned for the next show, but almost that we had that conversation honestly between us to go, we need to probably put ourselves out there uncomfortably, address a few of the big issues from top to bottom, offer some potential solutions, and just go, we're not going to get it right. I don't have all the answers. But I would love to engage more to try and help provide solutions or offer more solutions.
And, I'm coming from the, rugby for me. If I didn't play rugby, God knows where I would be.
I'd have been in so much bother.
I genuinely mean it. I mean, the game has kept me on the straight and narrow, even into my adult life. It's kept me on this. Not just talking about when I was young. So the game, some of the people that I've met, some of the people I've played with, some of the people I've been coached by, So you have this, people throw the word culture around, but it's like having been involved in all the good things about Scottish rugby over the years, being part of things like that, is that what you want is you want kids, young players to experience the same. And you want them to get the same feeling out of the game that I got out of the game, but they're not getting that now. And I think at some point somebody has to stick their head above the parapet and say, hold on, this isn't working, it's not right, and you're accountable.
And let's try and fix it.
And let's fix it.
Great note to end on, I think.
Yep.
Let's fix it.
Yep, absolutely.